So we'll turn things over to Joe, and he's going to be covering off his piece of pilot project opportunities with Halton Region.
Around HCHC, as I said in the bio, we look after 38 communities in across Halton, about 2,300 units and 4,000 individuals that we provide housing to. We're one of about 27, I believe, housing providers in the region. HCHC is the largest there. So I'd like to talk to you a little bit about a pilot project at one of our communities. That community is 410 John Street, known as Wellington Terrace in Burlington. You can see a picture of the front doors on the front there, and I'll ask to have the next slide advance, please. So this is a bit of a background slide about how the project came about, and some similarities with the previous presenter. It started really with conversations, formal, but not, there were tables and partners talking about how to best support the needs of the older adult population in this context in Burlington. You can see there's a couple tables that had formed back in 2018, and really looking at how they benefit from increased integration of housing and social services. And we looked at a program in the States called the PACE, or the Program for All-Inclusive Care for the Elderly. We started off by sort of referring it to a PACE model. We don't anymore, because there was a number of pretty fundamental differences as far as insurance and payments and things like that I won't get into now. But about the concept being that providing a coordinated continuum of services under one roof would really lead to better outcomes for seniors population. So it's not necessarily a new concept, but it was definitely a new approach that we were working on in Halton. So it also aligned with regional objectives, community safety and well-being, and improved access to services and enhanced system planning. So things started to align back in 2018 as we had sort of a coalition of the willing, if you will, come together with a shared vision for how to better support the older adult population. Next slide, please. So as I said, we selected the site at 410 John Street, which is Wellington Terrace, which it's 126 units. It's a 9-story building right in downtown Burlington. It houses an older adult population. You can see it had a higher call volume of paramedic EMS calls. We did have as far as the ages, it was while it was an older adult building, meaning we housed residents 65 plus, it was an older population there. We had a higher number of residents there over 80 with health acuity. So we also had a lot of other, we had 14 providers. So it was a well-serviced building. So the challenge was for us was that HCHC, we do a pretty good job at bringing services into a building. We don't do as spectacular job at coordinating them. So the theory of change behind this and the 14 providers was that through the coordination and collaboration between service providers, that we could improve the quality of life for residents in the building, better services, and also residents in the community. So I'll sort of in the immediate community. I'll get to that and when we get to the setup. So if we go to the next slide. So this was really the objective, the theory of change is, and the key parts coming out of here is proactively addressing health and wellness needs, reducing health crises requiring acute care, and an intersection of the healthcare, housing, and social services. So that really was, in a nutshell, what we were trying to accomplish with this pilot at 410 John Street. Next slide, please. So this slide is pretty busy. And I can see it might be a little difficult to read, so I apologize for that. But this gives a bit of an overview of how the model works. So really, what you had is you see on the left side about community support services, housing, health and medical. So we had a range of support services provided by a number of partners. We started with 14. The keeners on the call here will count that there are 16 providers on the name, and some of them are I recognized through the sign-in that some of them are on this call, so I'm sure they can keep me honest and make any corrections or if I misspeak in the chat. So many of the services remained in the building that were already there. Really, the benefit or the value of the model comes on the right side of this slide. And what we have is a Wellness Hub coordinator. So we had a partner obtain some external funding, and what they do is hire a full-time coordinator that works out of the site. That you can see they work with delivery partners and residents, should be plural, to coordinate and develop services. So the coordination of the services was one of the key aspects that was really missing pre-model. And so that coordination really allows, I think, the value add to allow the sort of whole to become more than just the sum of its parts. It leads to some of that elimination of duplication or red tape by finding efficiencies and working to really facilitate those collaborative approaches and identify pinch points that can hinder services. Underneath that, you'll see interdisciplinary teams. And so the model involves partners at the table working together to case conference around individual residents and users or members of the hub, as we call them, to better coordinate services, perhaps fine-tune them, schedule delivery, and make sure that those services are meeting the specific needs of the individuals who are requiring them. So that's a visual about how the model works. Let's go to the next slide, please. So how does it look? For brevity, I had a bunch of photos that I trimmed out of this just to keep the presentation a little shorter. But in a nutshell, HCHC, as a housing corporation, we put $1 million into capital renovations. So on the ground floor, we have about 5,500 square feet on the ground floor. I believe that we completely renovated. We put in a new reception area, some staff offices, not only for HCHC staff, but for partner staff to deliver to work out of, a clinician room for providers to use, as well as a larger program area. So there was pretty significant. These renovations went on for the better part of a year. Looks great. You'll have to take my word for it, but it does really enhance those. So the physical space is really enhanced for that integrated service delivery, and it allows the coordinator and other partners to come in there and actually operate right on the ground floor. So obviously to residents, you can see a benefit of being able to get off the elevator on the ground floor and go in and access those services without having to get on the bus or travel very far. And we can accommodate many of those in-house. And not only are they those services, but they're coordinated to meet the needs of residents. The other piece in the phase 2 of the pilot is in cooperation with one of our key partners is obviously Burlington Ontario Health Team, but their mandate to serve the surrounding community. We're opening it up to a target population that may not even live in the building. So the ground floor and partners who are members of the hub can also bring their members or clients that are not residents of the building in to use those services. So it starts to expand beyond just the 120 plus units of the building to serve the surrounding area. So you can see in doing that, those renovations need to consider the balance between the community access as well as the resident living space. This is the ground floor of their home. So they do spend a lot of time there. So we had to be very careful to balance that access to the broader community while respecting the security and safety and the privacy of residents. So next slide. A little bit about results to dates for members. So it is still relatively early in the implementation process. We're under 2 years, but we have some encouraging results. First of all, uptake has been really good. We've had 80 members, so well over half the building signed up for the case plans. That's not including those that access programs and services. These are individuals that are members, if you will, of the Wellness Hub and receive the case coordination. We have, I know Sean Wiley asked earlier about the metrics and the evaluation. So the Burlington, Ontario Health Team has some folks that are involved in evaluation, and they are working on our evaluation plan. We'll get to that in the next slide. But some early results in 2021, non-hub members were more likely to have double the number of EMS calls when compared to hub members. And also we have resident surveys where they they'll self-disclose their progress in a number of areas. So the self-perceived health and wellness improved in, you can see general health, pain or discomfort, feelings of loneliness, physical health, mental health, and feeling anxious or depressed. They also were really early results show they find the coordination of services much easier. They don't have to sort of tell their story. We have a common consent form. I mean, these approaches that are, as I said, not new, but they've really had an impact to the accessibility and the way that we can coordinate services in the building. Next slide, please. Partner feedback. We've heard that there's improved coordination and service, communication and service coordination with the help of the coordinator. As I said, it's having a full-time person designated to tie all these things together and to help with the data collection and the scheduling really makes a big difference. It's a big investment and very appreciative of our partners for supporting that. But it makes a huge difference. And it's also led to some early increased programming based on resident feedback. One of the key aspects of this model that we've built in is continually asking the members, what is it you're looking for? What are we don't know what we don't know. So what services and supports would better benefit you? Where do you feel that you could need new services? So through that, we've added foot care and some mental health supports, and we are continually looking to engage residents in those conversations and ask them for their feedback in those areas. Next slide, please. So I mentioned the evaluation piece. So through the healthcare partners, the Ontario Health Team, and the researchers, we're working towards a quadruple aim framework. Some on the call may be familiar with this. It really looks at these 4 areas below, and I won't get into them. But looking at how does this model improve the provider experience, the member experience, and then 2 of the trickier ones, but the ones that as a government employee that I get a lot at the meetings I go to, what are the health outcomes and the costs? So those are a little more tricky to tease out, but we are starting to pull that thread a little bit and put in metrics in place that we can start to quantify those results in those areas. So that's the evaluation framework that we are working towards. Next slide. And really, this is my final slide. We're also scale and spread. So we've been very pleased with the outcomes to date. We've received a lot of great feedback from providers and partners. So at 410 John Street, the pilot project, it's 80 members and growing. As I said, we're looking to expand the membership in the building, as well as invite seniors from local high-need buildings into the 410 John Wellness Hub. So the next step for the Wellness Hub is expanding the membership and the access to those services beyond just the residents that live in the building. So we're managing that right now. That's what we're currently doing at 410 John. We're also looking to expand the model. So we have, as I said, we have a number of buildings across the region that we've developed or developing a model to best identify which are the best sites that could house more wellness hubs. We identified 271 Kerr Street in Oakville that currently has a hub launched in it. We have another one at 5250 Pinedale that we're looking to launch, and then We have a new development, a building at 263 Kerr Street, which is actually right in front of the 271 Kerr Street location, that we're building a 5-story new housing building that the ground floor will be purpose-built for a wellness hub, and the second floor actually will house supportive housing. But we're starting to build. You can see the hub and spoke in new models. So what we're looking to do as we expand, we're looking at how can the model still work without having, significant renovations, or can you have a hub and spoke model where we maybe move programming from another hub to maybe a smaller location. So we're starting to play around with what the operations could look like in the model, while still maintaining the same theory of change that improved coordination and integration of services and tailoring them the needs will result in allowing not only seniors at HCHC buildings, but in the broader community to age in place and enjoy a higher quality of life while achieving better outcomes for health and service programming. I believe that's my last slide. I'd be happy to put my contact information in the chat. If anyone would like any additional information, I'd be happy to respond to any questions at this time.
All right, thank you so much for walking us through that, Joe. That's really exciting. We do have some questions in the chat. Sharon says she would like your contact information, so if you can pop that in the chat, that would be lovely. We have a question from Christina from Chats. She's asking a couple of questions. What was the space that was converted into the hub previously used for? And how do people become members? Are there any fees for the folks who are using it, and how do they sign up?
Those are great questions, Christina. Thank you for those. So the space that was converted into the hub, one of the ground floor space was a large sort of lobby. It was a waiting area. It was hideous. There was a lot of dusty rows and pinks, and so it was an area that needed a makeover, but it was a large sort of empty space. So it was underutilized. The building was I think it's about 30 years old. So there was some work to be done there anyway, but it was a space that allowed us. And as I said, through about a year and a half, the design process put a lot of work in it. So we actually made a lot of the office spaces, converted what was sort of large, kind of cavernous apartment building lobby space into something that I think was much warmer and much more useful, while we still maintained a large space for residents to a program room. We installed a gas fireplace. So in addition to making the hub space functional from a service delivery standpoint, I think the renovations also made that ground floor space much more livable and enjoyable for residents. So we're really happy with the way it turned out. At 271 Kerr, for example, where we've launched another hub, we had a large enough space there that didn't require a huge amount of renovations, and knowing that at our new build we're just moving 50 meters down the road, so we didn't have to put any money into the building that, and that's sort of a key takeaway, is this model will work. You don't have to we put $1 million into capital renovations in one of our buildings, but it can work without the capital renovations if the physical space to allow that program coordination and interaction is there. So is there a fee? No, there's no fee at all. It's absolutely free, and there's just a simple, as you said, registration. A big part of the setup was the consent, because, as I said, with the case coordination and the providers working together to share information and having a coordinator, the privacy issues and having to work through the common consent forms. Fortunately, we have folks from the health sector around the table at our partners table that are a lot smarter and well versed at this than I am. So they've managed that piece, but there is no fee. People just sign up, and people can still access the programs and services in the building without becoming a hub member, if you will, and receiving the sort of coordinated case plans and that coordinated planning. So there's different levels of engagement available. We didn't want to exclude. It's not an all or nothing where we said, if you don't want this package, you don't get anything. So there is no fee, and it's a pretty simple sign up.
All right, great. Great for that. Thanks for that comprehensive answer, Joe. Are there any other questions from anyone in the audience for either of our presenters, Joe or Deborah? And again, you can always reach out to them through the, okay, and Joe has put his name into the chat, and I'm guessing he's going to pop his email in there very shortly, so that's great for folks who want to reach out directly.